Hello and welcome to the third part of this series of videos where I'll be taking a look and comparing the performance of my gaming PC to the performance of the performance and quality modes of the Xbox Series X. So here we are at the only mode that you can play on Xbox Series X, Mafia Definitive Edition, which is capped at 30 FPS, 1440p resolution, native 1440p. I don't think there's a dynamic resolution scaling happening in the Xbox Series X, and all the settings are turned to medium, except for one or two. They are at high. Most of them are at medium, so they're a little bit down when comparing to what you can get on PC. And you are capped at 30 frames per second at 1440p. And as you can see on my RX 5700 XT, 30 FPS with all settings turned to medium at 1440p. Just no sweat. Total walk in the park. And pretty much the same experience you would get on the Xbox Series X. And this is the most recent title I play. This is a 2020 title. I was never a fan of the previous Mafia games, but this one really takes it up one step further.
All about the way I love you and adore you, my own. I've tried to seek expression.
So today we're going to be taking a look at three parts of this game. The first part is how you play it on consoles. How you play it on consoles, and the only way you can play on consoles it's at 30 FPS, capped 1440p. Then we're going to be taking a look at how you could play, how I can play at 30 FPS on my computer, taking the resolution and the graphics settings one step further. And then we're going to be taking a look at the performance at 60 FPS, as I would call it a performance mode if the Xbox Series X would ever have one. So now we've reached the second part of this video. Um, we're going to be taking a look at um, my quality mode on the RX 5700 XT, playing at 30 FPS, but this time at native 2160p with all settings turned on, anti-aliasing at its highest settings, motion blur on to have a better experience at 30 FPS, although I do enjoy motion blur generally at all frame paces. So here we are, native 4K, 30 FPS, and as you can see, walk in the park for the 5700 XT. I do believe the Xbox Series X has a similar graphical power. I don't know why they wouldn't bump the resolution up to 2160p and play this game at, I don't know, we're there with the medium settings at 30 FPS. I'm sure the Xbox Series X could handle it. Bear in mind that this is RDNA 1 architecture, and everybody was talking about how RDNA 2 architecture on consoles would be better and so much smoother. And, well, as we can see, without ray tracing in the mix, just rasterization, this GPU is as powerful as the GPU on the Xbox Series X. So if they do bump the resolution up to 4K on the Xbox Series X, I don't believe they will be using the highest settings as I'm using here. And I still don't understand why they didn't offer performance mode, a 60 FPS mode with a lower resolution. I used to play at 30 FPS all the time. I do tend to favor graphics over frame rate, although I really don't care about frame rate above 60 FPS. Firstly, because I play on a 4K TV, a 60 Hz 4K Samsung TV. But when I played in my monitor, which was a 1080p monitor, I also played at 60 FPS. So, and I like the experience at 60 FPS. I know maybe it's something you get used to if you buy like a 75 Hz monitor first, and then you go up to 120 Hz. Then you experience 120 Hz for the first time, you get used to it, then you go back to 60 Hz and you think, oh gee man, I can't go back to 60 FPS again. Then you invest money and time on getting a computer that can get you 120 FPS on average on every game. Then you spend all the time trying to push the hardware to the max, and then a lot of money has to be spent on your CPU, cooling, overclocking, and shit. And well, it just isn't worth it for me. I'd rather not get used to something better than 60 FPS. So let's say 60 FPS, and as everybody says, it's the magic number. And I used to play at 30 FPS like we're seeing here all the time at 4K. Back when I had my GTX 1060, man, that graphics card was amazing. It was a 1080p graphics card, but you could still play games at 4K with an average of 35 to 40 FPS at medium to high settings. That was awesome. And I used to play it all the time at 30 FPS. I would rather have the picture quality on my TV being native 4K with lower frame rate and maybe less graphical detail, but the graphical detail was in its crispness. The image had more crispness than 1080p. Although I could play at 60 FPS 1080p, and it was so much better to enjoy the image, so especially in open world games. I used to play GTA 5 all the time at 4K, very high settings, capped at 30 FPS. Rise of the Tomb Raider, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, all capped at 30 FPS at 4K. Just playing and no problems at all. So yeah, this was 2160p, 30 FPS on the 57. And here we are in the last part of the video, where we're going to be taking a look at the performance at 60 FPS. This time with some settings turned down, so we can get a much more full experience. Starting with depth of field, I don't really care about depth of field. I don't really take a notice during gameplay. Rest of the settings are on high, except for anti-aliasing, which is turned down to medium. The performance is good. I wouldn't say flawless, because as you will see, there will be frame dips during free roaming, driving, especially when I look back instantly, turn the camera back, and then front again. When there's a lot of volumetric effects on screen, well, that issue, I think it's a performance of the GPU. But when driving it free roam and loading assets in the background instantly when you turn the camera back, maybe that's a CPU thing. I don't know. All I know is that the frame rate sometimes goes below 60, high 50s. So, but anyway, you can still play it at 60 FPS, 1440p. Which you can't on the Xbox Series X. If you could, I would theoretically say it would be at 1080p with dynamic resolution. They wouldn't risk it. Seeing how similar the power is between the 5700 XT and the Xbox Series X GPU, I wouldn't say they would risk having a launch remake of the Mafia Definitive Edition with a 60 FPS performance mode, and then it would be crap because all the settings are turned to high and the resolution is 1440p. So I would say they would leave the settings at medium to high, and they would have some sort of dynamic resolution going all the way down to 1080p and upscaling it, like I'm doing now, to 4K. So, as you can see, we're getting 60 FPS, and I do believe that this is it. I couldn't go up a bit on the resolution anymore, or turn up anti-aliasing. It would only cause more stress on the GPU. I think it's at its limit. This just shows you how games are evolving very quickly, because I can play all games from 2018 and back at more than 1440p, like 1512p with all settings turned up. I'm thinking of Shadow of the Tomb Raider with all settings turned up at its maximum preset at 1512p. Rise of the Tomb Raider, GTA 5, Need for Speed Payback, all those games from 2015 to 2018. Then we get to 2019, and there you get Red Dead Redemption 2, and we are already at 1440p, and settings are a mix between medium to high. So this graphics card, which was considered a good 1440p graphics card, is really starting to show its age with these kinds of games now. And I don't want to even think about the performance of Cyberpunk 2077. I've already seen some videos and I got a little bit scared. I don't even really know if I'm going to buy the game or not, just to get that sort of, half of the experience. So I either play at 1080p with high settings and never enjoy ultra, or play at 1440p tops at low to medium settings without enjoying the graphical the graphical features that they've added to the game. So yeah, this is one area where it shows its age, this GPU. But when you play at Xbox Series X at 30 FPS, Cyberpunk's 2077, you notice the graphic details are not the same. The resolution is still low compared to what you can get on PC. But so yeah, this was Mafia Definitive Edition. How it compares to the Xbox Series X. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.